that much of it. What I can speak to is the New York.
Okay.
And the difference between New York and LA is very great, in my opinion, because there's so much more dubbing work done in Los Angeles, and because you're in the sort of Hollywood sphere, I know that when I moved from New York to LA, I really had to step up my game. There were people working at a level in LA that I wasn't used to, and that's part of why I moved there, is because I wanted to play with the big boys. So in New York, many of the times I was the one as the actor in the show coming in and telling the director what the show was about. Because, not all of it. There were a couple of directors in New York who were great, but the majority, I would say, really didn't know that much about what was going on and didn't know. Now, the anime scene in New York has been drying up because the main licensor there, Central Park Media, seems to be having a bit of a tough time because the Japanese decided to market a lot of their stuff and license it directly through their own American wings. So I don't know what CPM is doing these days, but when I was there and there was more of it happening, that was definitely the case. I mean, in New York, we almost never had scripts that were adapted to match flip-flap. We usually went in the studio with a script that was merely a straight translation, and then we'd modify it in the booth. I can't stand that personally. And there are certain shows that I did in New York that I was able to do scripts for. Night on the Galactic Railroad, much of Shamanic Princess. But in LA, everything is adapted. Writers are adapting the scripts for lip flap before we even go in, which is a huge problem, especially with, I know we saw Pet Shop of Horrors, and when they did the commentary, it was almost like the actors and the directors had no idea what any of it was about. It was like, we went in and we dubbed it, and that was it. Like, they didn't do any research on it. And generally, probably a lot of voice actors don't do research on it. I know Scott doesn't. Scott has no idea what he's doing. He's just going in and he's being crazy. But, It depends on the show. I mean, like, a show like Slayers, it was actually wonderful to go in and just improv something off the top of our head. Because the show itself doesn't have, shall we say, a lot of subtlety of storytelling. There aren't like things that are going to be revealed that need to be delicately placed. You know, it's not like Utena. Utena is very delicate. In
Slayers is very repetitive with some of the storylines, like with how characters showed up and stuff like that, or dressing the guys up as girls. It happened a few times.
And not to say that Slayers doesn't have some deep themes to it. But it's not delicate.
It's very blunt.
It's very blunt. So it was fun to do silly stuff. But something like Utena or Wolf's Rain or Witch Hunter Robin, which I actually took over the scripts because
I still have yet to see Wolf's Rain, but I've seen Witch Hunter.
But because we were working on Witch Hunter Robin, and I kept rewriting my lines as Alma because they weren't very good. And so the director said, would you like to do all the scripts? And I usually don't do scripts unless I'm directing. And so I said, but Witch Hunter Robin, I said, okay, I'll do it. So for the second half of Witch Hunter Robin, from episode, I believe, 14 on, I did all the scripts.
And of course, everybody says they're better.
Yeah, well, but I try to do, I do my research. I know Townsend does a ton of research, especially for Hellsing, doing all sorts of research about the Templars. And I'm quoting the Book of Enoch at one point in the episode.
Hellsing it just has so much background to it. Like Integra's got family in Avon, and like Alucard's got his past. If you go into the manga, it actually goes into things about his past in Romania, and it does a lot of past things, even with Mulder. There's bits and pieces of his past when he used to jump out flames with Alucard and stuff like that. So, yes, there's some really big things. We own the entire Hellsing at home.
Gotcha.
But
the most important thing for me is when I'm working on a show is to make sure that even if I may not know the details sort of dramaturgically about something, is that I understand the creator's intention, and that I do my best to try to stay true to that intention. Tchaikovsky once said that the goal or the purpose of an artist, what they're trying to accomplish, is to have an audience feel the emotion that they intended or felt when they were creating their art. So a Japanese creator creates a piece of anime and he wants the audience to experience a certain set of feelings or thoughts.
Miyazaki's really good for that.
Yeah, and so then me, as someone who is adapting it into English, my job then is to make sure that the American audience, or the English-speaking audience, or the Canadian audience, has the same emotional journey that a Japanese audience would do. And sometimes that means I need to stick very close to the way the Japanese did it, and sometimes that means I need to shift it slightly because it's not going to work. In Scrapped Princess, which I directed and acted in, that was a big deal because the premise of the show is basically the main theme of the show is the dangers of religious fundamentalism. And so as the show was going on and the Japanese were sort of setting up this world, it was clear that the fictitious religion that they were setting up, the Church of Mauser, was just that. It was a church. It was based on very sort of Christian ideas. And later on, very late in the show, at one point, one of the peacemakers, one of these angels, talks about jihad. And in the Japanese, he does. He says the word jihad instead of something else. And I go, no, it's not a jihad. Because you haven't done imams, and you haven't had mosques, and you haven't done this in a Muslim style, you've done this in a Christian style. It needs to be a crusade. And there's things like that where it has to be changed or else an American audience would go, Talisman had to do the same thing in Hellsing, where the creator would say they were taking a certain road, taking the M4 or something, and they were going to
M4 motorway, I think it is.
And it was like, well, if it goes to Heathrow, but if it doesn't go to Heathrow, we've got to change it.
Exactly.
He always made sure that any town they talked about actually had to exist. The town of Cheddar had to exist. Was it the Lancaster? Lanchester?
Lanchester.
Lanchester. He's like, they must be Manchester.
No, it's Lancaster.
And then he went and said, no, there is a Lanchester, and there
is a huge church
in Lanchester. And there's a church of Lanchester, so okay, that works. So, but it's important. I mean, not only, again, that's the more dramaturgical, but in terms of the emotional interpretive, it's important to me to keep the intention. In Spirited Away, Chihiro, when she first comes to the bathhouse, and she's on the bridge, and she looks up, and they have the long pan of the bathhouse. And in the original Japanese, she doesn't say anything. Because the Japanese audience is going to look at that and go, oh, it's a bathhouse. But an American audience isn't. And so as they're panning down, and she goes, oh, a bathhouse. And it's like,
you've got to be able to tell them.
You got to know what's going on.
Now I have to ask about the octaves. The octaves. I had to ask about the octaves. So how did you guys come up with ways to do the octaves?
Octaves is really tough. You think it's easy, but the fact is your brain likes to make connections. So when you start talking gibberish, and not just like, what is it, but if you're actually talking words, your brain automatically wants to go black, white, small, big. It wants to make connections. So they come up with stuff like butterscotch nose appraiser. It's very tricky. You actually have to like, it's sort of like, you'll come up with something random like, fish wins, and then it's like a Rubik's Cube. You have to like twist it and find something else, and you're like, fish win diplomat. I mean, it's like, you're like, what the hell?
Ours had to be the orange butterfly scimitars. Like, you just kind of picture that, and of course it's coming from Gowrie, right? It's just that much better.
Very.
Okay, so I guess since we started off the octaves, we can go into some of the more funny questions that I was told to ask. How about, what's your view on ceiling fans?
I like it when they don't hit me in the head. I don't view ceiling fans because they're above me.
Okay. Have you tried Tim Hortons yet?
No.
You need to go across the street and do that.
I'm not trying to.
That is a Canadian landmark. You need to do that before you leave.
You get everywhere.
Oh, you need to.
Gotcha.
Starbucks is your big thing. Tim Hortons is ours.
Gotcha.
Tim Hortons is the biggest thing, and once you drink Tim Hortons, you'll never go back.
So it's a coffee place.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because I keep saying it like in weird places. It's like, is it a gas station?
Well,
is it a restaurant?
In Toronto, it's not so big, but where I live in the little town of Woodstock, it's like you go to the corner and there's a Tim Hortons, and then you go to another corner and there's a Tim Hortons, and they're like in zigzag down the street. In the small town of Woodstock, I think we have a population of 100,000, and there's 10 Tim Hortons, and they're always busy.
Oh, okay.
They're worse than Starbucks.
Awesome.
So you have to try Tim Hortons before then.
All right.
And yeah, I guess that's all the questions I have.
Okay.
And thank you very, very much for being with us. And
You bet. My pleasure.
if you want, I'll give you the site and everything, and you can check out your own interview.
Yeah.